Hi, everybody. This is Shasta, and I'm super happy this week because I get to interview one of my friends about a group that I was a part of, which is very fun. We're talking about just awesome women's groups ideas, what we do to connect and to gather, and covering a different idea, a different concept every single week as we're looking for inspirational ways to be community makers, people who are not just getting a need met for ourselves, but also who are helping gather and be the initiators and the catalysts for others. And so one of my favorite groups that I've been a part of is a group that we called it 1010, and we'll have my guest and my friend describe why here in a minute. But welcome Ayesha Mathews-Wadhwa for being here. And this is super fun that years ago we started this group, and now I get to interview you about it.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here, Shaz. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. It's my privilege. So tell us if you, and I'm happy to try to jump in between the two of us. We hopefully can gather a good memory of this whole thing.
Yes.
But tell all of us why we started this group. What was the impetus or the need, or why did we need one more thing to do?
Yeah, so I think if I remember the genesis, it was you, Christine, and myself sitting together and thinking of, well, wouldn't it be great for women, all of the incredible women we know, sort of bringing them together to help talk about our challenges, our successes. A lot of us were growing businesses, maybe share best practices, and offer a circle of support and resources to each other. And so that was the genesis of the idea. And I remember the three of us put down a list of the top 10 women we would like to have in our posse, if you will, in our very own mastermind. And incredibly, we wrote out a really amazing vision and a welcome letter of what this could be and sent that invitation out. I don't think quite knowing where we'd land, but at least from my list, I do believe everybody accepted. And we had we were, I think, in a position to really cherry pick and bring together the women that we wanted in our lives on a regular basis.
Yeah, I think I remember. Did you and Christine even know each other very well? It's not like the three of us were really good friends.
Yeah. No, I think we were more acquaintances, and I think so were we. We'd had a couple of speaking events when I was running Savor the Success in San Francisco, and you were a guest speaker. But I don't know that any of us had a deep shared history to necessarily feel like this was a thing we could do together. It just seemed like, hey, we've all got these incredible networks and we have so much to offer, not just each other, but a larger group of women. And why don't we try to pool those resources together?
I love it. Yeah. I remember at that time going to networking events and kind of hating it because you're just mingling and just meeting people and you're kind of being like, so what do you do? And what do you need help with? But it was so, I don't know. I just remember, I think somewhere along the idea, we were like, I'd rather have a smaller group that we network, actually build a support net,
Yeah.
And so it was really, I don't know, do you refer to it in your head as a networking group or as a mastermind, or it kind of became a little bit of all of the above.
I think for me, you're right. It was definitely more mastermind than networking because I totally agree. I was running my own design consultancy at that point, and I'd been to plenty of the business networking, and I appreciate. I think there's a certain place for it, but again, talking about just the fundamental ways in which circles or connections designed from a male perspective versus a female perspective, they're very different. And there's, I think, a reason why we probably felt like there was something lacking with a really quick model of the what do you do and who you are in the world versus how do you feel and what are you sort of struggling with. And so I think the format to be able to dive in a little deeper and connect on a more meaningful level, and also honestly have a bit of a safe space.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that was missing with the networking is that there's no consistency. There's no real ability to build trust and a friendship, even if it's over time. And so conversations and relationships tend to be shallow and superficial. And so I know I was looking for something deeper.
Yeah, and that's where the consistency piece came into. One of the things that I find interesting now looking back on it is that we chose to have 10 women as a
Yeah.
part of it. And so it's a little bit bigger than your traditional mastermind, which would just kind of have maybe 4 to 6 people potentially that are kind of really going deep on each other's business and stuff. So it was kind of a mix of like expanding our networks by, and no one of us knew everybody. So I think it
Right.
was like you contributed 3 to 5 names to the list.
Yes.
I did, and Christine did, and then from that we kind of were like, let's start inviting and see who says yes. And I think we only had one person who was like felt like she couldn't be committed to it on time wise, but
Yeah.
maybe that was another
Yeah.
cycle down. But yeah, we
Yeah.
had people were pretty excited to participate.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I remember that. And yeah, I think the impetus was also, expanding that circle, and also bringing and inviting the women we felt most enriched by and who could potentially enrich the group further. It was about, a shared sense of if of support and resources, right?
Yeah.
Because we're all, and we still are all, trying to do amazing things in the world, and we know it takes a village. So
Yeah. That was my favorite part of it was
yeah,
like these are women who we think are trying to like do their thing
yeah.
and like leave a presence and have a voice, and what can we do to support each other. So tell us how we came up with the name 1010. Like what does that mean?
I think it was by finding like the final magic number of the women who who accepted to be part of it were 10, and then I think we decided we would meet 10 times a year. It was going to be on a monthly cadence, and knowing that November and December typically were going to be a wash with the holidays, it was Jan to October. So 1010 was by the number of times we met and the number of women that the group started off with.
Yeah, so so the three of us got together and we brainstormed names and we decided who we were going to invite, and then what did we do? Like we asked a commitment from everybody, I think. Like we picked all the
Right.
dates ahead of time for the whole year, I think.
Yes, I think we agreed that it was the first Monday of the month,
That sounds
right?
right.
Just because, I mean, I think even just the three of us coming into it could appreciate how busy not just our lives are, but most women's lives are, and how in order to have some kind of consistency, and I think that was part of what was part of that invitation letter that we sent out, that only join or commit, like we would be, I think we had to have at least an 8 out of a 10
Yeah.
kind of attendance, because I think you help sort of formalize and give us a structure of the course and the foundations of good community and friendships, which is consistency, and having that sense that people are going to show up and commit to not just being there, but also valuing everyone else's time who've chosen to be there. So yes, I do believe we asked for a minimum of making sure you come to 8, and and I think we also took turns. I know we earlier it was hosted in my office just because of it was the easiest sort of access point, and we have the space. And I think we also moved to a format where we kind of round robin and hosted at each other's homes or in other locations.
Yeah, no, those are good reminders of all of the logistics. And
Yeah.
one of the things I loved about us asking a commitment from everybody that they had to be 8 out of 10 is this.
Mhm.
And what's one of the things that a takeaway for me is that there were several people we almost didn't ask because we thought they would be way, way too busy. Like one of Supriya, I remember you just being like, she is traveling all the time. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think, and yet she was like,
Yes, I
yes.
know.
And she
One
planned
of
her travel around
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I think you're right. I think that it's a good reminder to not be the person holding yourself back, to make the ask no matter how big it is, and let the other person choose,
Yeah.
and evaluate. And you're right. I think that was. That surprised me. A lot of the women who committed and who joined, I think I was surprised by and,
Yeah.
really thrilled with. I mean, having Kimberly Ellis as one of our
Yeah.
first 10 members was a
Yeah.
treat. And then she
Yeah.
introduced us to Megan and then
Yeah.
Kisa. So the rest
Yeah.
is history. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I love, so I've been a part of masterminds where it's like, we're all entrepreneurs or we're
Yeah.
all authors. And one of the things that's kind of magical about this format is that we were all completely different
Mhm.
careers. Yeah, I mean, we had like media, advertising, corporate, author. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, we had a
I
really
don't think,
diverse
I do
mix.
think that was intentional. I don't think that was
Yeah, I
accidental.
would
I
think
think
it's a
that
really
was,
crazy mix.
yeah, because I do believe that honestly, there's not only different strengths in like that diversity, but a different set of, insight and resources that, people could all bring to the table. And I think there was, it was really healthy to sort of have that exercise and empathy and sort of hearing and getting snippets of everyone's life, both work and personal. And no matter whether you're running a business or you're raising a family or you're working in a corporate culture, on some level, we all need to be seen and heard and have a circle of support. So,
Awesome. All right. So that's the why and kind of the what it was that we made. So 10 women ended up coming together 10 times a year. We did that for years, and we would
yes.
sometimes have somebody move away or need to drop
Mhm.
off, and we would kind of
Mhm.
nominate somebody to replace that for several years, and we kept that going. So then the format, tell us what you remember about the format. So when we did get together during those 10 times, what did we do?
Yeah. I always remember having delicious food and drinks. I know that was, I think that was sort of an
But you know what?
imperative. Yeah.
With that, to make it easier, because I think initially
Yeah.
we were like, let's take turns bringing stuff in, and I think finally we were all like, we would just rather
Just, yeah.
donate
Yes.
$10 each time, and you just ordered
Exactly.
something and had it.
Yeah. We had this amazing Mediterranean
Yeah,
place. I remember that would just do like a platter and,
yeah,
people would bring wine and it was just easier. You're right. It was just easier to sort of contribute that $10 and have one person manage it and, order it for the recurring events. So that was one tiny, logistical part. But as far as the format,
which is a big thing. And I would just add to that it wasn't even like we just brought $10 each time. It was like we said, okay, so that's going to be $100 for the year. So
Mhm,
like
mhm.
prepay it and be done.
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
yes,
So it didn't
yes.
matter
Keep
if
it
you didn't
easy.
show up, we still knew the food was going to be paid for.
Yes.
I mean, just keep things easy, right?
Yes, I know. Yeah, and I think that's what I loved about the setup. I think it was not just, I think you want to make it so that the energy and the time is spent in the sharing and the coming together, not in the logistics of trying to, coordinate what date works for everyone, on a monthly basis, or try to coordinate just like where and the what are we going to serve. I think all of that becomes like secondary noise, and we kind of got all that set up front, and so we could just focus on being able to show up
Yep.
and be
Love that.
present. Yeah, so the format, which I really loved, I think, was when everyone got together. We invited everyone to sort of share a highlight that may have happened in the past month, something they were really proud of, and we would toast to that. And so that was how we opened. And then, depending on the amount of time and how many people were present, we kind of divvy up the time remaining to allow for deeper sharing, talk about sort of challenges, talk about areas where we could sort of help each other. And also, just sometimes people just wanted a space, a safe space to share and be heard. And they would sort of say that up front. I don't really need anything. I'm not looking for stuff, but there's just been a lot going on, and I want you guys to give me the space. And so, and that was great. I also think what was good about that, like we did time it, and we would have a little, timer set up on our phones and a little reminder that would go off. And I think just having like that amount of structure helps to keep it sort of even, keep it moving around, moving for everybody and keep it fair for everyone inviting. So I love that structure. I love that balance of, a little bit of structure, but otherwise keeping it organic and loose. And then typically after sharing, we would close out with a prayer, with a blessing that a lot of times you led. because you're so incredibly gifted and wonderful at it. But I do think we took turns. I remember us all offering, a simple prayer of thanks and blessings for us as we went out and conquered the world for the next month.
Aww.
Yeah.
It's making me want to go back and redo it.
I know. It took me
I mean,
very
now
nostalgic.
we're all friends and
Yes,
we get see each other
yes,
and all of that, and it built
totally. Yeah,
amazing,
yeah.
amazing friendships.
Friendships. You're right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, looking back at that format though, yeah, it's one to this day. I look at that as one of just the really great format. I love the idea of 10 powerhouse women coming together and starting off with like a success story, like something they're proud of, because I think that's just a different DNA, like to be able to have a place where we can be proud in front of our friends. Like I always say, if we can't do it with people who love us, what chance do we have of showing up in this world feeling safe, shining, So to really shine in front of each other and cheer for each other was, I remember really liking that.
So I have a question for you, and I know all of this is an effort for us to build more meaningful communities. Do you think the format could have worked if this was a co-ed, as in both male and female, or do you think they're most successful if they're women only and men only circles? What has been your experience when you've seen kind of the gender mix versus single gender communities?
Yeah, I think the co-ed totally can work. I think absolutely. In fact, a lot of studies show that just having the presence of a woman or two women in a group kind of helps change the dynamic and helps, because we don't have a culture that has really encouraged men to be vulnerable or to share. So having women in the group, I think, is such a bonus in many cases for kind of creating a better ambiance that the men benefit from as well too. Not to say that men couldn't do that. There's not men that do that all by themselves amazingly. But yeah, I think co-ed, that would be actually a really fun, encouraging model to be like, let's support each other and really help us hear each other's stories and stuff. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good thing. We should do that one next.
Yes.
Good. So yeah, that format. And the other thing that was nice about that format is that there were always weeks very rarely were all 10 of us there, even though we all had the commitment to be there 8 times. We often had some couple of people missing, but it allowed that even if it was a smaller group, having 10 people there meant that even if some people couldn't make it, even a smaller group just got to share more. They had more time per person and got to like bond a little bit more. And you feel like you really missed something. If you missed a month, you now had 2 months where you missed out and you felt like you were way behind.
Right. And I know one more thing that we tried with the format and then changed it up to the one we talked about was in the beginning, I remember we would invite guest speakers on any sort of like topic we thought we would benefit from. And then pretty quickly, I think we opted to just do sort of the sharing and take that time to talk amongst ourselves because, again, the format of the group, with the time scarcity, we all sort of have it felt like we all got a lot more from that intimate sharing versus we could sort of tune in and get sort of the expertise from guest speakers in many different formats. So
yeah. Good point. Yeah. I think we ended up deciding we're all reading books, watching talks, like going to conferences, but what's missing is like showing up in each other's lives and businesses. Yeah. So really we did focus and cater into that, which was really special. And then at some point we ended up also adding like a full day retreat kind of a thing or like half day things where we started saying, wow, this just isn't enough. Because they are like, okay, we each have 8 minutes, and it can sometimes feel rushed and forced, and yet you can't sit there on a weeknight just going till midnight. So it was like helpful to keep things moving. But at some point we were like, let's just have one day where we're all together, and that really bonded us because suddenly a whole day together is a different, more time than what you could fit in a couple hours every month. So that was a nice add.
We planned like really amazing agendas, which were a combination of doing something fun, something healthy in the sense of, there might be yoga or a hike or a walk. And then even with that, we sort of kept it easy where it was a potluck style. Everyone brought something and it was generally in someone's home. Yeah. And and I do agree. I think that we try to do that twice a year. And then we sort of said, let's do a half a day twice a year. I think maybe I want to say as long as we were formally meeting, we had half a day. And now that we're more of a social group, we're lucky if we get half a day once a year. I know sometimes how much wrangling that takes.
So,
but that goes back to that point, I think, where, a little bit of structure sometimes is a good thing. And I think we know that with all of our lives, just having that commitment, as a non-negotiable for the group was helpful to get that consistency.
Yeah, it's true, because I think I always look back at that group as on the one hand, it was so great because we had so much consistency over time that then even when the group ended, we have practiced hanging out so much that we still all get together. We see each other at parties. We are a part of each other's lives, which is so beautiful. And if that's all it did, that's amazing.
And not to mention that text chain that we've had for, I think at least, I don't know, 6-7 years now, right?
Good point.
And even if what I love about that is even when sometimes it's not physically, practical for all of us to be in the same place or get together, we're still held together by that text thread.
It's true.
It's true. And metaphorical, that makes us feel connected. And there's still times when we're sharing our highs and lows and, photos, all kinds of amazing things there.
That's a really good point. I'm so glad you brought that up, because even if it was just like everybody saying Happy Valentine's or Happy Mother's Day, what it says to your brain is they're just right there and I can reach out if I need to, as opposed to like, oh, I haven't talked to them in 8 months. It would be kind of awkward. Like, it does make you feel like the thread is shorter to connect with each other, which is really beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah. And then I'm going to ask you what was one of the hardest parts or more challenging of this that you would feel like you learned from, or that we would pass on as any advice or anything? We've been doing a little bit of it already, but is there anything else that jumps out at you?
I think so. One is the more logistical thing of, now having like walked away from the structured approach, really appreciating how something like scheduling can completely be the obstacle to any kind of meaningful, connecting. And everyone's so well intentioned, right? Like it's just the reality of our lives. So, but that's more of a logistical thing. And again, if like by tackling it up front, that's one way I think to solve for it. I think the other thing that was a little harder is, in that invitation email and with, every new member that was nominated and brought in, there was a shared, both explicit and implicit sort of code of conduct or value system, if you will, that we shared. And I think there was just one incident one time where, a member exited the group without necessarily honoring that, or without sort of any kind of formal closure. So that I think was a bit of a struggle, because it was a little like being ghosted. We all know what that experience is like today. And I think having that happen in sort of a larger group setting was sometimes was challenging. But the good thing with that is just several years later, I think we all got the closure we were seeking in probably the best way possible. So I think that tends to be a little upsetting, or at least for me, like it's a hard lesson where it, often enough, there's lots of situations where we come together in life and, you disappoint people and vice versa. And that's just because we come from different places. We have different perspectives, different sort of, code of conduct or a value system, and that's very understandable. But when you're creating a space with a very implicit and explicit sort of set of values, I think when somebody sort of deviates from that, it feels maybe a little bit more personal than it would in other situations.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And because we had a little bit of a shared leadership or no formal leader, I probably, on the one hand, that was so nice because no one person felt like this whole group was their thing.
Right.
We did
Right.
kind of share that. And on the downside of it is that's what happens. You know, if we had a leader in place, they would be following up with people and saying,
Yes.
where are you? And it's been more than two
Yes.
times, and a little bit
Yes.
more of a, you know, we're just more of a
Yeah.
group as opposed to like
Yeah.
person managing
And
that.
and I think, I mean, honestly, that was something that I really valued, like the non-leader sort of aspect, only because 90% of the time that falls upon me, like in my regular life, and I'm sure on all of the women at that table. And it was a bit of a relief to be in a space where it was not your responsibility to chase after somebody. And I think that, again, that was a very clear,
Yeah.
explicit sort of tenet of being part of this group. Like, you're showing up because you want to. None of us need to be,
Yeah.
policemen or nags or like chase after. I think, we all have children, literal or metaphorical, right? Whether it's our business and all of the stuff, or work, or actual, kids. And I think being in a space where we could all just be adults and have that be like the base level expectation was a bit of a relief.
Yeah. Good. All right. So rewarding. What was it all worth it? What did you take away from it? The kind of the value for you?
It was 100% all worth it. Like, I would do it again if we could, with the same group of women, if we decided that, hey, we're looking to, kick this up a notch, and this is sort of a need we're feeling again in our lives, or with, perhaps another group that I felt compelled to be a part of. So from a is this all worth it, from a time commitment, from a energy commitment, a resource commitment, 100% yes, no question about it. And I think the rewards, honestly, are there's just so many. The biggest of which is a group of, and I witnessed this now twice, thanks to you. I was also part of a speed friending circle that you did, and one of my closest friends in New York, Jamie, was someone I
That's
met
right.
met there. And the fact that with this group of girls and with Jamie, like, it was literally like meeting Cole, outside of having you in common, and potentially a few some sort of community code in place to help facilitate friendships. The fact that these are some of the closest friends that I have today is invaluable. I mean, literally friends / family is how I think of them. And yeah, and I'm trying to recall if there's anyone else that I've met, sort of not on a personal level, in a kind of a networking or mastermind level over the last 10 years, that I kind of call like friends / family. And I think really they all came out of this group.
Yeah. Yeah, we've built some good relationships. And it speaks to how important everyone keeps, even though we don't meet formally anymore, everybody's inviting each other to the big moments in
Yes.
their lives, and
Yeah.
parties, and dinners and
Yes.
get-togethers and stuff. So
Yes.
yeah, we've become good
And
social.
I also think we took the big risk of introducing our spouses
Yes.
um, to each other's
Yes. And they
spouses.
always started claiming they were going to start their
Yes,
own group because
I
they were
know.
jealous of us.
That's a running joke. I think there was a 10-20 group or something being planned.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We
Yeah.
did it. It's good times. And any other advice, any questions I didn't ask you that you feel like would be important to inspiring somebody who's looking to kind of say, yeah, I want to have a network, but not necessarily have to go mingle, but feel like I've got a group of people with me on my side?
I think it's great to have a set of explicit, like, purposes, like, and have, whether it's just 3 or 4 simple statements why you want to do this. And I think you want to be able to share that with anyone you're inviting into a group,
Yeah,
but
for sure.
also having that easy to access and pull up, whether it's on your phone, because every couple of months, and by the way, like, life changes, your needs change, and allow and expect for that. But it's a really good reminder when sometimes motivation may be lacking, or people's lives get crazy, and something like this may become second or third priority. to share that and look at that list and sort of ask that question, you know, around the table, whether any of these reasons for why we joined in the first place still hold true and still mean as much. I think it's a good way to sort of um, refresh everyone's energy and spirit and remind everyone why we came together in the first place.
Yeah, we actually had to opt in every year. So we
Yes,
were all kind
yes.
of given
Sort of
that
like
choice.
renew the contract, if you
Yeah,
will. Yes,
definitely. Saying we
yeah,
we honor that we committed to this year, and it's okay if anybody, you know, like, but and what do we need to do differently to make this more meaningful? Like we had those conversations, and yeah, and if we totally graciously understand if somebody moves on.
yeah,
But yeah, that was a
yeah,
good way to kind of opt in a way.
yes.
That's a good one. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm so glad we did it. I just feel like, I mean, I look back. I mean, when we started, I didn't even have a book written. I mean, it's just amazing to remember back what a group can do
Yes.
for you of brainstorming and encouraging and just kind of witnessing the growth of it. And then
That,
like being
yes,
at
you're
your book
absolutely
party.
right.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing what
I
that
think
group
you're,
did
yeah,
for each other.
that's the other aspect. And I was thinking about it earlier in our conversation, but in terms of what's been rewarding, you're right. Over a span of maybe the formal span of maybe 6 years, 5 or 6 years, as long as the group was meeting consistently, and then sort of the informal phase where we are still in touch with each other and part of each other's life, but may not be with the same consistency. I think you're right. Seeing, you know, the growth, the complete change in careers, you know, children coming into the mix, you know, new partners. I think all of that has been incredible, just like witnessing a life, but still being able to share that with women who've known you and seen you over a long period of time, who know the magic you're capable of, and so they can hold you up when, you know, when things don't feel as great and
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
you need a boost of confidence.
Oh. Well, this has inspired me that I'm going to text you when we finish this, and we are going to get our
Yes,
next date on the
stay
calendar, you and
together.
me.
Absolutely. And you
Thank
look so
you.
fabulous as
Oh,
always.
thank
Mwah.
you. Oh, I love you so much and
I
miss
love you
you, and
too.
love that we had this journey together as one of our many pieces of glue that helped to build our
Yes.
friendship up. And so thank you for being with that.
So grateful for you. Mwah. Love you.
Love you. And I'll just say to everybody else as we wrap up that I've got this community makers circle coming up. And so if you feel like you're wanting to figure out how to kind of co-host something or organize something or gather something, it's support and connection training. It's like incubating an idea, getting clear who it is, and helping write up that code of conduct and that format, and thinking through who you want to be a part of it. This is one of many different ideas, but my dream is to have way, way, way more women's groups out there in the world and community happening where people are gathering up and supporting each other. So let us know if you want to be a part of that. Thank you, doll. Love you.